The colony world called Haven was still young. Only 30 years had passed since the first ships from Earth landed on its soil. The planet had wide green fields, tall silver mountains, and two suns that filled the sky with golden light each morning. Families had worked hard to make it a true home. Houses stood along the riverbanks, and children played on the stone paths between tall trees. Farmers grew food in the valleys, and miners dug deep for metals that helped build new machines. Life on Haven was calm. There were no wars, no fears. People had come here to escape the old struggles of Earth and to give their children a chance to grow under new skies. Traders from other human colonies visited often, and they said Haven was one of the brightest worlds in human space. But peace never lasts forever. One night, while the two suns were below the horizon and the skies glowed with countless stars, strange lights appeared in orbit. At first, the watchers in the observatory thought they were meteors passing across the sky. Then the lights grew larger and began to move in sharp, unnatural ways. They were not meteors. They were ships. The colony's defense system was small. Haven had only a few patrol craft and one old station above the planet. No one believed such a quiet world would ever need more. The patrol ships tried to send warnings. They called out to the unknown vessels, asking who they were, why they had come, but no answer returned. Only silence. Then the attack began. Beams of fire cut through the night sky. The station above the planet exploded in less than a minute. The patrol craft fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outmatched. Within the first hour, all of them were gone, their wrecks burning in the upper atmosphere. The colony below had no chance. Families woke to the sound of thunder that was not thunder at all. Explosions lit the horizon. Whole fields turned to flames. Cities that had taken decades to build were broken in minutes. No demand was made, no warning was given. The alien fleet struck without words. The people of Haven tried to run. Shuttles lifted from the ground, carrying mothers, fathers, and children toward the skies, but few made it through. Alien fire cut them down before they reached the stars. Others fled into forests or mountains, hoping the invaders would not follow. Yet nowhere was safe. The fleet did not land. It stayed above and burned from orbit. By the next dawn, Haven was no longer green. Its rivers boiled, its cities smoldered, and its proud mountains were scarred with black lines. The survivors numbered only a handful, hiding in caves and ruins. For them, silence was the only shield left. Across human space, news of the attack spread quickly. Ships passing near Haven sent desperate signals before they too were destroyed. Traders who managed to escape carried stories of fire raining from the heavens. When the transmissions reached Earth, the leaders gathered in shock. Never before had an alien fleet attacked without reason, without words. The name of the attackers was not yet known to all, but whispers soon spoke of the Varn, a species feared on distant borders. To most humans, the Varn were only a rumor, a tale told by explorers in faraway taverns. Now the rumor had become fire and ash. Back on Earth, sorrow turned into anger. Families who had sent loved ones to Haven demanded justice. Leaders who once spoke of patience now called for strength. The voice of the people was clear. Humanity would not let this act be forgotten. Haven was not just a colony. It was a promise of life, and that promise had been broken. The stars had watched as Haven burned. The galaxy had witnessed what was done. And in the silence that followed, one truth became stronger than all others: humanity would answer. The news of Haven's destruction reached Earth within days. At first, many could not believe it. The first report seemed too dark, too sudden. A whole colony burned to ashes. Families gone in a single night. Some thought it was a mistake, a false signal, or a trick of faulty transmissions. But then more messages arrived. Traders, explorers, and scouts repeated the same story. The Varn had come, and they had left nothing alive. In the great chamber of Earth's council, leaders from across human space gathered. The chamber was built of white stone and glass, shaped like a circle so no voice stood above another. Each leader carried with them the grief of their people, and their voices rose heavy with anger. At the center stood Chairwoman Mara, an old woman whose life had stretched across wars and peace alike. Her face was lined with years of struggle, but her voice carried the strength of every colony. She spoke the words none wished to hear. Haven is gone. The Varn have shown no mercy, no message, no reason. They did not come to speak. They came to destroy. A silence fell, but only for a moment. Then the chamber erupted. One leader from Mars struck the table with his hand. If we do nothing, they will come again. What world will they burn next? Mars. Europa. Earth itself. A governor from the outer colonies shouted, "We asked for more protection years ago, and it was denied. Now Haven pays the price. We cannot stand idle again." Voices clashed, rising higher with each breath. Some called for immediate war. Others trembled at the thought of fighting an enemy so powerful. Fear mixed with fury, and the chamber shook with the weight of their words. Among them, a younger counselor named Aaron spoke with calm but sharp fire. "The Varn believe we are weak. They struck at Haven because they thought we would bend, that we would hide. We cannot bend. We cannot hide. If we do, then every colony, every home, will fall one by one. We must show them the strength of humanity." The words stirred the chamber. Even those who had doubted found their voices rising with the same thought. Humanity had survived storms, wars, and endless trials before. They had crossed the stars, built homes on barren rocks, and made life where none had been. They were not weak. Chairwoman Mara lifted her hand, and the voices fell into silence once more. Her eyes, though old, burned with a fire no age could dim. "The Varn think we will do nothing. They think humans will bow their heads and accept this. They are wrong. If they wanted to test us, then they have their answer. We will rise. We will prepare. And when we move, we will move as one." The chamber erupted again, but this time the sound was not of argument, it was of agreement. A vote was called, and every hand lifted in unity. There would be no delay. Humanity would answer with strength. Beyond the chamber, the streets of Earth and the colonies stirred with the same fire. Pictures of Haven's broken cities were shown across every screen. Children who had never seen war asked their parents why anyone would do such a thing. Parents who had once dreamed of peace now swore to protect their children's future. Factories, shipyards, and training fields began to awaken. But even in their anger, some leaders worried in silence. The Varn were not a simple enemy. Whispers from traders spoke of their fleets stretching across vast sectors, their weapons tearing apart ships larger than anything humans had yet built. To strike at them would mean facing a storm greater than any before. Still, no one dared speak the words of doubt aloud. To do so would be to dishonor the fallen of Haven. Chairwoman Mara met with her closest advisors after the vote. Maps of stars were spread across a wide table, glowing with markers for human worlds and suspected Varn territories. The advisors spoke of risks, of strategies, of timelines. Mara listened carefully, her hands folded, her eyes sharp. At last, she said, "The people do not want slow plans. They want hope. They want to see strength. If we delay, fear will spread. We must show the galaxy that humanity is not afraid." Thus the decision was made. Not only would humanity prepare for war, they would prepare on a scale no one in the galaxy had ever seen. Word spread like wildfire. Factories were ordered to shift fully into ship production. Engineers were called from every world, their skills needed for designs larger and stronger than before. Men and women lined up to serve, filling ranks before the call had even been fully made. The council's rage had turned into resolve. Haven's ashes would not be forgotten. Humanity would forge an answer in steel and fire, and when it came, the Varn would learn that they had awakened a force they could not break. And so, while the galaxy watched, Earth began to rise. When the Council's vote was cast, the decision reached every corner of human space. From the great cities of Earth to the smallest mining outposts near distant suns, the message was the same: humanity would rise. The first order was sent to the shipyards in orbit above Earth. For years, those yards had built traders, freighters, and small defense craft. Now the plans changed. Giant frameworks of steel began to form, stretching longer and higher than anything seen before. These were not patrol ships. These were Dreadnoughts, war machines so vast that each one was a moving fortress. On Mars, the skies filled with smoke and light. Factories that once made farming machines turned their forges toward weapons. Sparks rained across the red soil as workers hammered and welded through endless days and nights. No one complained. No one asked to stop. Each worker thought of Haven, of families lost, and of children who would never see their homes again. Their grief became strength, and their strength became steel. In the belt of asteroids beyond Mars, miners dug deeper than ever. Every rock carried ores needed for armor, engines, and weapons. Mining crews worked in silence, their drills echoing in the void, while haulers carried tons of raw metal to waiting stations. Engineers there melted it down, shaping it into the bones of ships that would soon fill the skies. On Europa, the icy moon, young pilots trained in simulators that shook and hummed like real cockpits. They learned to fly in formations, to fight as one, and to trust the crew beside them. Some were barely more than boys and girls, but their eyes held no fear. They had heard the stories of Haven. They had seen the flames in the sky through the recordings. Each one whispered a silent promise to never let such a thing happen again. Across the colonies, men and women stepped forward in numbers too great to count. Soldiers, engineers, builders, teachers, even farmers all offered their hands to the cause. Humanity had never been so united. Borders between colonies no longer mattered. Old disagreements were set aside. There was only one goal: prepare for the storm that was coming. In hidden vaults deep beneath Earth, ancient blueprints were brought out from storage. These designs dated back to wars long past, when humanity had first spread to the stars. Many thought such ships would never be needed again. But the Varn had changed everything. Teams of scientists and engineers worked day and night to bring old plans to life with new power. The Dreadnoughts would not just be rebuilt. They would be reborn stronger than ever before. The first of these titans began to take shape. Its frame stretched like a mountain of steel, dwarfing the workers who crawled across its surface. Each bolt hammered into place carried the weight of a promise. Its engines were tested again and again, until their roar could be heard even in the silence of space. When the workers saw it floating for the first time, they gave it a name: Valor. Valor was only the beginning. More dreadnoughts followed, each one larger and deadlier than the last. Soon the sky above Earth shone with lights of construction, as if 1,000 new stars had been born. From every window on the ground, children looked up and pointed, their eyes wide with wonder. They knew those ships were built for them, to protect their homes, to guard their futures. As the months passed, the work only grew faster. People no longer spoke of fear. They spoke of strength. Where once grief had weighed heavy, now determination filled every heart. Songs were sung in the factories. Flags were raised on the shipyards. For the first time in generations, all of humanity felt as if they were one people with one purpose. But still, in the quiet corners of the council, leaders worried. 500,000 dreadnoughts was a dream larger than anything attempted before. Could the forges truly keep up? Could the supply lines hold under such strain? Could humanity train enough pilots and crew for so many ships? These questions lingered, but they were not spoken aloud. The people needed hope, and hope was stronger than doubt. Chairwoman Mara visited the shipyards herself. Standing on a platform high above the earth, she watched as workers assembled the frame of another dreadnought. The ship was so large it seemed to block out the sun. Mara spoke to the workers, her voice carried through the loudspeakers. "You are not building ships. You are building shields for our children, swords for our people, and a wall against the darkness. Each plate of steel you lift, each engine you fit, is a promise to the future. The Varn believe we will fall. Let us show them that humanity does not fall. Humanity rises." The workers cheered, their voices echoing against the hollow bones of the ship. For them, her words were more than orders, they were truth. Thus, the forge was called, and humanity answered. Every hand, every mind, every heart was turned toward the task. In the silence of space, the great machines of war grew stronger each day. And though the Varn did not yet know it, the seeds of their defeat were already being hammered into place. The first dreadnought, Valor, was only the beginning. Soon, others followed. Each new ship rose from the docks like a mountain of steel and fire. Their hulls stretched across the void, shining under the light of distant suns. Their engines roared with a power that made the ground tremble. To see one dreadnought was enough to inspire awe. To see thousands was to feel the strength of an entire species awakened. Above Earth, the skies were no longer empty. Hundreds of massive frames floated in orbit, each one slowly becoming a ship. Shipyards spread like cities among the stars, their scaffolds glowing with sparks as workers welded piece after piece. Cargo haulers moved back and forth, carrying metals, food, and supplies. Shuttles rushed to deliver crew members and tools. The void itself seemed alive with motion. And Earth was not alone. On Mars, 3 vast rings of shipyards produced dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything built before. The red planet's skies glowed with engine fire as completed ships lifted from the docks and took their places in formation. On the moons of Jupiter, great factories worked day and night, turning frozen ice and mined ore into armor plating and weapon cores. Even the smallest colonies, far from the core worlds, sent what they could. No place was too distant to join the cause. The armada began to grow. First 100 ships. Then 1,000. Then tens of thousands. Each carried a name chosen by the people: honor, courage, liberty, dawn, guardian, spirit. The names were painted in bright letters across their hulls, so that any who saw them would remember what they stood for. Training followed swiftly. Pilots, crews, and commanders filled simulators, drills, and battle exercises. Space near Earth turned into a web of maneuvers, with dreadnoughts moving in perfect lines, their engines glowing like fireflies. Small craft darted between them, practicing escort runs and defense maneuvers. Officers barked orders, and crews responded with discipline. Mistakes were made, but each mistake became a lesson, and each lesson made them stronger. Children on Earth watched from rooftops as formations of ships passed overhead. Their parents told them that these ships were guardians, protectors that would make sure no child would ever see their home burned as Haven had been. In schools, teachers spoke of courage and unity. For the young, the dreadnoughts were not only machines of war, they were symbols of safety. Beyond human space, other species watched in silence. The galaxy had known humans as explorers, traders, and settlers. They had never seen them gather such strength. Some aliens whispered that humanity was reckless, building too many ships, reaching too far. Others, more cautious, warned their leaders not to interfere. A few remembered the old stories of Earth's rise, stories of humans who endured storms and still moved forward. Those few whispered quietly to their councils, "Do not provoke them. Do not test them. The humans will fight if pushed." Still, the armada grew. Chairwoman Mara stood once again on a platform above the shipyards. This time, she was not alone. Counselors, commanders, and engineers gathered around her as a new dreadnought was launched. Its name was Unity. Its engines flared as it rose, joining the growing fleet. Mara's voice carried across the station. Look at what we have built. Not one colony, not one world, but all of humanity has shaped this fleet. Every hand, every mind, every voice has joined together. This is more than a fleet. This is a wall that no enemy will break. The Varn believed they could scatter us. Instead, they have united us. And soon, they will see the strength of that unity. The crews cheered, their voices echoing across the steel halls. For them, the ships were not just weapons. They were proof that humanity could rise higher than fear, higher than loss. Day by day, the numbers grew. 200,000 ships. Then 300,000. Finally, as months turned into years, the fleet neared its goal. 500,000 dreadnoughts floated in formation, their engines casting a glow brighter than the stars. Each one carried thousands of crew, trained and ready. Together, they formed the largest armada the galaxy had ever seen. When the full fleet gathered for the first time, the sight was beyond words. From the surface of Earth, the night sky was filled with moving lights. Entire constellations seemed to shift as dreadnoughts passed across them. People stood in the streets, on rooftops, in open fields, staring upward in silence. For a moment, no one spoke. For a moment, all of humanity breathed as one. And in that silence, a thought spread through every heart: the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. The gathering armada was not just steel and fire. It was grief forged into strength, loss turned into unity, and fear shaped into courage. The Varn had taken Haven, but in doing so, they had awakened a force greater than they could imagine. The ships were ready. The crews were ready. And soon, the march of steel would begin. The 500,000 dreadnoughts waited in formation near Earth, their engines glowing like a forest of burning stars. Each ship carried thousands of crew members, pilots, engineers, and soldiers, all trained for the moment they would face the Varn. For months, they had drilled, prepared, and strengthened their minds and bodies. Now, the time had come to move. From the command bridge of Valor, Admiral Wren watched the fleet stretch across the void. His eyes traced the lines of ships, their weapons ready and shields humming with energy. Every formation was perfect, every crew alert. He felt the weight of history on his shoulders. Humanity had suffered great loss at Haven, and this armada was its answer. Signal all ships, he ordered. We move as one. Instantly, every dreadnought fired thrusters, the fleet shifting like a massive river of steel. Light reflected from countless hulls, creating a glow that could be seen even from nearby moons. Smaller escort ships weaved between the giants, their pilots performing final checks. The armada had become a living organism, every part moving in perfect harmony. The Varn fleet was still near Haven, feasting on the remains of the colony. Their ships were sharp and fast, built for destruction, but they had not faced anything like this before. When the humans emerged from hyperspace, the Varn scouts detected the movement and sent messages back to the command ships. "They come," a Varn officer hissed. "The humans come in numbers we did not expect." But the Varn commanders only laughed. They had fought humans before, and they believed this fleet was only a show. They thought the humans would scatter when pressed. They were wrong. As the human fleet approached, the scale became clear. Hundreds of thousands of ships, each a fortress, each carrying enough weapons to break moons, moved as one. The Varn hesitated for the first time. They had studied humans, counted their colonies, measured their strength. They had never imagined such unity, such power concentrated in one armada. Admiral Wren knew that fear could be a weapon as much as steel. The fleet maintained perfect formation, engines blazing, shields humming, weapons charged. Every pilot knew their role, every crew understood the mission. They would strike with precision. They would not waste energy. They would not falter. The first encounter came as small Varn scouting ships moved to intercept. They flew fast, hoping to damage the humans before the full fleet arrived. But the escort wings met them with disciplined fire. Lasers tore through enemy hulls, shields collapsed, and the scouts were destroyed one by one. It was a warning, a test of the humans' coordination. Then the dreadnoughts entered range. Their weapons activated, not in anger, but in readiness. Energy beams crackled across the void, lighting up the darkness with color and power. The Varn were surprised by the accuracy of the human attacks. They had expected confusion, mistakes, hesitation. Instead, they faced discipline and precision. Admiral Rin spoke to the entire fleet over the universal comms. Remember Haven. Remember our families. Remember the future we protect. We fight not for revenge alone. We fight for every child, every home, every world in human space. Move forward. Strike as one. Let the galaxy see the strength of humanity. At that moment, the armada surged. The dreadnoughts fired in unison, the power of their weapons shattering Varn defenses. Alien ships that had never seen humans fight like this began to break apart under the concentrated fire. Explosions lit the darkness as shields collapsed and hulls were ripped apart. The Varn tried to respond, sending their fastest and strongest vessels against the human lines. But the humans held. Pilots maneuvered with skill, crews reloaded and recalibrated, and dreadnoughts covered each other. Each loss of a Varn ship only strengthened the resolve of the humans. Every strike reminded them of Haven, and every victory carried hope for the future. The fleet did not falter. It pressed forward with unstoppable determination. From orbit to the edge of human space, the galaxy could feel the movement of 500,000 dreadnoughts. The March of Steel was not only a battle, it was a statement. Humanity had been hurt. Humanity had been tested. And humanity would not bow. As the Varn realized their mistake, their commanders issued retreat orders. But it was too late. The humans advanced with speed, accuracy, and strength that no one could match. The first true battle of the Armada had begun, and the Varn were already on the defensive. From the Bridge of Valor, Admiral Rin watched the chaos unfold with calm determination. His eyes shone with pride, not just for the machines or the firepower, but for every human who had stepped forward to fight. They had built this fleet, trained these crews, and carried the hope of an entire species. The March of Steel had begun, and it would not end until justice for Haven was complete. The galaxy would remember this day. The human armada had reached the edge of the Varn fleet, and the silence of space was broken by the roar of engines and the hum of weapons. 500,000 dreadnoughts stretched across the void like a living wall of steel. Each ship pulsed with energy, shields shimmering, weapons ready. The Varn looked upon them with disbelief, realizing too late that humanity's response was far beyond anything they had imagined. Admiral Rin stood on the Bridge of Valor, watching the enemy. His hands rested lightly on the controls, but his mind was sharp, calculating every movement. This was the moment humanity had trained for, the moment that would define the future of every world. "Fire all primary weapons on my mark," he commanded. "Synchronize with the entire fleet. Let the storm begin." Across the Armada, the dreadnoughts responded instantly. Energy beams crackled, turrets rotated, and missiles powered their engines. The first salvo struck the Varn like a hammer. Shields that had never been tested failed under the concentrated human fire. Alien ships exploded in brilliant flashes, sending fragments spinning into the darkness. The Varn attempted to regroup. Fast strike ships darted forward, hoping to break the human lines. But human pilots anticipated every move. Smaller craft intercepted the attackers, destroying them with precise shots. Dreadnoughts fired in coordinated volleys, cutting swaths through the enemy ranks. For every Varn ship that fell, the humans pushed forward, never slowing, never faltering. On the Bridge of Unity, Commander Lyra watched as her crew coordinated a massive strike. "Target their capital ships," she ordered. "Do not let them escape." Concentrate on their engines first. Her crew responded with perfect efficiency. Energy beams tore through the enemy's lead ships, disabling engines and weapons. The Varn fleet wavered for the first time, confusion spreading through their ranks. Humans had anticipated their every move, countered every attack, and pressed with unstoppable force. Even the young pilots who had once trained on simulators now faced real combat with courage. Ships that had been built only months ago flew like extensions of the crews themselves. Every maneuver was sharp, every shot accurate. Fear had no place in the hearts of humans today. They fought not only for revenge, but for the safety of all their worlds. In the midst of the battle, a group of Varn warships attempted a surprise attack from above. They aimed to split the human armada and escape with their fastest vessels. But the human fleet was prepared. Scouts detected the movement, and interceptors raced to block them. Dreadnoughts turned their turrets in unison, firing as the enemy approached. The Varn ships were destroyed before they could reach the main line. The battle raged for hours. Space itself seemed alive with explosions, energy beams, and fire. Dreadnoughts moved with mechanical precision, their shields absorbing blows that would have destroyed lesser ships. Smaller craft zipped between giants, striking at weak points, covering each other as the armada pressed forward. Every action was coordinated, every movement calculated, every strike deadly. Admiral Wren spoke over the universal comms to the entire fleet. Remember why we fight. Remember Haven. Remember every world, every life we protect. We are humanity. We do not bow. We do not flee. We rise, and we strike as one. His words carried across the void. Every crew member, every pilot, felt their meaning. The human armada was more than ships and weapons. It was courage, unity, and determination given form. The Varn had underestimated the humans. They had not expected grief to become strength, fear to become discipline, and loss to become fire. By the end of the first cycle of battle, the Varn fleet was broken. Ships that had once filled the skies were destroyed or scattered. The remaining forces tried to flee, but human dreadnoughts pursued them relentlessly. Engines fired, weapons struck, and the enemy was cut down one by one. From the Bridge of Valor, Admiral Wren watched the last of the Varn flagship's energy shields collapse. He allowed himself a small smile, but he did not celebrate. Humanity had won this battle, but the war for respect, for recognition, and for safety across the galaxy would continue. The storm of steel had been unleashed. Humanity had shown the galaxy its strength, its unity, and its courage. The Armada, though battered by the effort, stood proud. Haven's memory had been honored, and every crew member knew that the Varn and any other who thought to threaten human worlds had learned a lesson they would never forget. As the last flashes of the battle faded into the darkness, the 500,000 dreadnoughts gathered once more. They moved as one, their engines glowing, their weapons still ready. Humanity had answered the fire with fire. They had turned loss into power, grief into action, and sorrow into a storm that no one could withstand. The galaxy would remember this day. Humanity had spoken. And every star in the darkness had felt the weight of their voice. The battle was over. The Varn fleet lay in ruins, scattered across the void. Smoke and debris floated through space, the silent markers of their defeat. Humanity's 500,000 dreadnoughts had survived, their engines glowing softly as they moved in formation, a living monument to determination, courage, and unity. From the Bridge of Valor, Admiral Wren looked out across the stars. The void was calm now, but the memory of fire, energy beams, and explosions still hung in every crew member's mind. Many had never seen such destruction, and many had never faced enemies so fierce. Yet all had survived, all had fought, and all had triumphed. "Signal the fleet," Wren said quietly. "Begin the return to Earth and the colonies. Prepare for repairs and resupply." Every dreadnought responded, engines firing as the massive armada began its slow journey back to human space. Crews whispered to each other, sharing relief, pride, and a quiet joy. Some silently remembered Haven, imagining the lives that might have been saved if not for the Varn's cruelty. Others looked to the future, knowing that the galaxy now recognized the strength of humanity. On Earth, the news spread quickly. Every screen, every communicator, broadcast the message across the worlds. Humanity had fought. Humanity had won. Families cheered, tears ran freely, and songs of courage filled the air. The name Haven was remembered not for destruction, but for what it had inspired. A wave of pride and unity swept across the colonies. People understood that they were part of something larger, a force greater than fear. Chairwoman Mara stood in the central hall of Earth's Council, watching the celebrations. Leaders from every colony surrounded her, their faces tired but bright. She spoke to them, her voice calm yet powerful. We have shown the galaxy that humans do not bow to fear. We have built ships from fire and steel, trained crews in courage and unity, and we have struck with precision and strength. Haven was lost, but its memory has forged something greater. We are not prey. We are the guardians of our people and the makers of our own destiny. The counselors nodded, their eyes shining with pride. Across human space, the message was clear. Any species considering attacking a human colony would now think twice. Humanity had not only defended itself but had done so in a way that could not be ignored. In orbit above Earth, the Dreadnoughts rested in formation. Engineers began repairs, crews rotated shifts, and pilots studied the battle logs. Every person on every ship knew their part in history. These ships were more than machines. They were symbols of what humans could accomplish when united, what they could build from grief, and how they could turn loss into strength. Children on the planets below looked up at the sky and saw the giant shadows of the Dreadnoughts. They pointed and asked their parents questions. Parents smiled and told stories of courage, of people who worked together to protect others, of the fleet that moved like a storm of stars. In those stories, hope was born, and a new generation learned the meaning of determination and pride. Across the galaxy, other species watched in silence. Whispers spread from world to world. Humans were no longer seen as simple settlers or explorers. They were a force to be respected, feared if provoked, and admired for their courage. Tales of the 500,000 dreadnoughts and the defeat of the Varn traveled faster than ships, carrying the story of a species that could rise from tragedy to unmatched strength. Admiral Wren remained on Valor until the last of the fleet was safely in orbit around Earth. He looked at the stars and felt a quiet satisfaction. The storm of steel had passed, but its echo would last for generations. Humanity had answered the fire with fire. They had built, trained, and fought together, proving that unity and courage could overcome even the greatest threat. Chairwoman Mara joined him on the bridge. Together, they watched the massive armada, knowing that what they had built was more than just a fleet. It was a promise. A promise that every human world would be defended. A promise that the Varn and any other who dared threaten humanity would know the cost. Haven will always be remembered, Mara said softly. Not for what was lost, but for what we have become because of it. Wren nodded. And the galaxy will remember us. Every star, every world, every being will know that humans do not yield, humans do not flee, and humans rise stronger with every challenge. As the fleet slowly descended toward Earth's orbit, the people below cheered. They celebrated not only victory, but courage, unity, and the strength of a species that had been pushed to the edge and had risen higher than ever before. Haven's ashes had sparked a fire that no one in the galaxy could ignore. Humanity had spoken, and the galaxy listened. From that day forward, no one would ever again underestimate the humans of Earth. The galaxy remembered.